Hi there, I am John King, host of the Drunken Odyssey, a podcast about the writing life.
And I am Will Dowd, author of Areas of Fog and a poet from the Boston area.
And right now we're going to watch and talk about Martin Scorsese's The Departed. So we're going to hit play on the DVD player in 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, I'm seeing Miramax's floating houses turning into a WB. Is that what you're seeing?
I'm seeing a WB.
All right, this is promising.
We skipped the Miramax part.
Now, plain text Warner Brothers Pictures. Are we on track?
Yep.
All right, it's happening. I have to say, John, that recording an unauthorized DVD commentary for The Departed is probably the most Boston thing I've ever done. But I am missing the fourth quarter of a Patriots game, so it kind of cancels out.
All right, so violence in Boston?
Yes.
From the 60s?
Yes, 60s, 70s. This is the famous busing, which a lot of...
So this is before your time?
Yeah, this was the sort of my peers' parents' time, and kind of still shapes the city to a degree.
And we've got the framing device of our gangster, played by Jack Nicholson. And he's kind of giving this wistful historical lecture.
Yeah, he's talking about how different ethnic groups gain or don't gain power. He just referenced the Knights of Columbus. My grandfather was a member of that. I remember I was invited once to join, and I thought it was a cult. I had no idea what it was.
So we're about 2 minutes into the movie, and we've got the N-word.
Yes, yeah.
And one of the things I love about gangster films is they tend to comment on American culture in a way that feels very honest. We can maybe wring our hands about the valorization of violence and the valorization of crime. But one of the things that, these movies do, and I think one of the reasons why there's a hunger for them, is because there is an honesty about the way America tends to work.
Yeah, there's something exciting about seeing someone like Jack Nicholson's character, kind of loosely based on Whitey Bulger, who ran parts of the country, talk shamelessly about how they operate and how they think, and they're sort of bringing their shadowy power into the light. Of course, our political moment would offer a lot of parallels, but
there's
classic
American flags in the background of the diner where he's shaking down the owner for a...
Yeah, and he's being gross towards this girl. It's a sort of a Rockwell scene, and then the devil walks in. Nicholson is so perfect for this. I mean, he played the devil before, but I think this is his best villain role.
Right, the devil in The Witches of Eastwick.
Yes.
And here, it's a better Satan.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, and he operates just like Satan would, right? He's offering groceries. He's kind of, look at his face is in shadow. It feels, for a Catholic raised in Boston, this feels exactly like what they warned about. The devil will come bearing gifts. Oh.
And we have one of our main characters, Colin, here as a kid, and he's being mentored a little bit, by this neighborhood hero, gangster figure.
Yes, in L Street. There's so many Boston, sort of movie Boston, L Street figures heavily in, like L Street Tavern from Good Will Hunting. That's a prominent spot in South E that I feel like has gotten a lot of play on screen.
Another Matt Damon movie.
Exactly. And we're about to get a jump cut from this kid's face to Damon's face. So, but I love this scene too, because this is kind of, again, he's just completely in shadow. They're not showing his face. And he quotes James Joyce, non serviam, which is what Satan says. And I guess Paradise Lost. So it's pretty explicit. I think there's more James Joyce references to come, which I'll try to point out. Yeah, so a lot of black humor. I love
She felt funny.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. French is one of the great movie characters. There's the boss always has like the best. Has to have a great number two to be a boss.
Well, and that's played by Ray Winstone, who was the lead in the movie Sexy Beast.
Yeah, and
the heist movie.
I heard that he and Jack Nicholson didn't get along during the filming of this, and I believe it because they're two sort of alpha males actors. There's the jump cut. I don't. They did a really good job of matching those two faces, I have to say. And then, of course, it goes from Nicholson saying, "What's the difference between a cop and a criminal when you have a gun in your face?" And then it jumps to, "Here we've got a ballistics lesson," which was honestly, I think I referenced this when I was on the podcast, but I come from a law enforcement family, so I have sat through a lot of lectures on ballistics over the dinner table. People are, I don't know, it's a fascinating subject, but I'm always trying to swallow my food while it's happening.
Yeah. So here we have Colin here, and he's a bad sport, and he keeps calling the firemen queers, and I think a lot of this is just him knowing he's not a good cop. He's not cop material.
Yes. I also, well, I mean, okay, so it rings true, the rivalry there, and this is how people in Boston talk. But I think that there's a bit of a subtext where Damon's character, Colin, is very homophobic right off the bat. And he's even going to say something again here. Yeah. But
he won't let it go.
But it's because his character later will be either impotent or maybe gay. There's
erectile dysfunction.
Yeah. So I think he's overcompensating, obviously. But it's just so seamless how this movie, it's unbelievable the amount of exposition that they do before the title. The title card doesn't come for like 18 minutes or something.
It's minute 19 or thereabouts. Yeah.
It's crazy. But Scorsese's able to do it because he just goes so fast, just jumping. Okay, so this was actually filmed in New York. This is supposed to be this Massachusetts State Police graduation ceremony. I've actually been to the Massachusetts State Police ceremony when my brother did a camp when he was in high school. And that in Massachusetts is actually in New Braintree. I'm from Braintree originally. We don't talk about New Braintree. It's this weird little town out in the middle of the state, but it does have the state police training facility. So I've been there. This is not it. This is New York. They film a lot of this in New York.
New York City probably being a little bit friendlier and more easy to work with in terms of film permits and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess New York had like a 15% tax thing for whatever for films, and then after the success of The Departed, Boston changed their rules, and now it's 25%. So that's why a lot of movies are now filmed in Boston. So this actually kind of unleashed. There was endless articles in like the Globe. Boston's the new little Hollywood on the East Coast. I don't know that that's totally come to fruition, but there's definitely been a lot of more Boston movies and Boston filmed movies since this. But it's just, so there's, okay, I love this. This is called an iris in shot. That's the federal court or federal building in Boston. So I've been there quite a bit. So what I love about the beginning of this is how well Scorsese sets up this idea that they're kind of mirror reflections of each other, right? DiCaprio and Damon.
The story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's almost a perfect mirror. You're going to have Costello versus Queenan, who's Martin Sheen's character. So you've got the father figures. You've got each one has a kind of friend from the academy that they came up with. And then, of course, there's going to be the woman in the middle. So there's a lot of symmetry. And
this is derived largely from the film Infernal Affairs. So this is Martin Scorsese doing another remake, and this one a little bit better than Infernal Affairs, although it's pretty great. But we should get to that at a slower moment, because right now
there's a lot
Scorsese's just flying through. So yeah, for a movie that's 2.5 hours, this doesn't feel like 2.5 hours. And there's like a slight sense of euphoria at minute 19 when you get the Dropkick Murphys and the title sequence, and you're like, oh, right, wait, we haven't had that yet, even though I think a while has gone by.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I said a moment ago about James Joyce. So Dignam, that's Wahlberg's character's name. So in Ulysses, Patty Dignam, of course, is a character who dies, and they go to his funeral. And in this,
He is
pretty much the
the
only one
Departed in Ulysses.
in The Departed, he's the only one who survives. So it's I think there was something. I don't know. I'd have to ask the writer, but I'm pretty sure that was a Easter egg for Ulysses freaks. Now,
that was William Monahan, the writer of the screenplay for The Departed, and yeah, I'm going to give him credit for that one.
Yeah, we could. I've got a lot to say about William Monahan. Again, it's hard to. So Wahlberg in this scene, his character's so great in this. It's kind of shocking. I remember being surprised when he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this, because he just seems so tangential in a way, but he makes such an impact and honestly captures. I mean, he's obviously it's authentic because he's from here, but he is the most Boston character in this. That's every adult I dealt with growing up.
Well, I think being from Boston isn't an automatic in when it comes to acting.
Right. Yes.
But also,
Wahlberg said that he based his performance on the cops who arrested him over 24 times in his youth.
Well, and I basically don't like him as an actor, and he's peeing all over everyone in this entire movie, and I love him in this movie.
That's right. Like, I only like Tom Cruise when he plays sociopaths. Like, I think Tom Cruise is amazing in Collateral, but that's because there's something off about him.
Collateral, Tropic Thunder,
yes.
Magnolia, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When he tries to play a normal person, that's when trouble starts.
So this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
He's meeting the captain and the guy who's basically managing the internal affairs unit, and he's getting dressed down.
Right.
And so while Matt Damon's character, Colin, is being introduced to the regular force that's tasked with bringing down organized crime, and he's a mole in that unit, and everyone's wearing suits and everything's nice, and then you go to this, and they keep going back and forth between this and
the posture, like you see Damon, how kind of loose he is, and then DiCaprio does this unbelievable job. He just like completely curls inward and kind of looks like he's about to hit them with the chair. and this is part of the casting. I mean, Scorsese said because you couldn't imagine the movie with them reversed, the actors reversed, because DiCaprio, everything is on his face, all the kind of inner torment, and Damon can play completely opaque. He's just one of cinema's great assholes. Like, he can play talented Mr. Ripley, Interstellar. I mean, he's just amazing at that. But look, DiCaprio's performance in this scene is kind of so unnerving. He just looks like he's going to explode or cry like a child. I mean, they do a good job of making him seem childlike because they're kind of tearing him down so then they can use him. It's the more I watch this movie, the creepier Queenan gets, because he's going to use him like a pawn, Well,
except the key is he's an absolutely brilliant mind for a pawn.
Right.
They can't use a stupid guy. And so the idea is, he's the perfect guy who is actually smart enough to pull this off and understands psychology well enough to survive what they want to put him through.
And because he has this history of code switching, right here they call him lace curtain motherfucker, right? So that's being on the North Shore, then going on the weekends to Southeast. So, and he even says at one point, I bet you had 2 different accents. And so he's kind of was raised for this role. Also, it's worth mentioning maybe that Scorsese and DiCaprio made this same movie, and it was called Gangs of New York. And it was very similar, if you think about it, just different time.
But this one's good.
Yes, this one, right. Exactly. This one worked.
And so what they're doing is imagining, his character years down the road, and they're like, 5 years from now, you're not going to be a cop. you're not going to be a state cop.
Right.
That's just not, it's not in the cards for you. And so they're telling Billy, like, you're going to be doing something else. You're too smart to do this.
Yes.
But, and so they're breaking him down and, all right, Diggum, is he this much of a jerk for the job, or is this just who he is? And he ended up at this job because that's his skill set.
Dignam, do you mean? Yeah. Oh my God. I don't know. I feel like my take on the relationship is him and Queenan came up together, good cop, bad cop, and exaggerated, kind of use each other as a double act. Because they're, like neither could exist without the other. Like each one's behavior wouldn't work. Because that was essentially an interrogation scene.
It was. And they are, it's game theory. They're saying, okay, if you stay with the Stadies, you're not going to last because there's not enough for you to do here.
It's good.
You're too smart to do this work.
Well, it's fun. It's funny because it goes back to, who becomes a cop in Boston and why, right? And it's, so in other words, and here they're showing DiCaprio talking to the rich side of his family, and obviously he's smart. So in Boston, being a cop is sort of a working class gig. It's changed, but that's what it was. So you don't really, they're like, why are you lowering yourself essentially? Because,
all right,
okay. So now we've got the State House. Here we go.
Now we get the State House for the second time, and we're seeing it through the apartment that Colin's going to buy using Frank Costello's money.
So this is an impossible view. There's no apartments that have this view like this. This was filmed, I guess, in Suffolk Law School library, the top floor or something. But here, this realtor's kind of perplexed by Matt Damon's sort of domestic situation. And again, I think this is where the
you've got a house guest, and what he's saying is, oh, you're gay.
Right. Yes, give me the papers.
And yeah.
So now we're at
Colin doesn't want to talk about it.
Every time a movie says its own title, like The Departed, I don't know.
We see it and hear it a couple of times, and I'm actually not angry, even though I normally am. And here we have flowers delivered to Billy's mother's funeral from Frank Costello.
It's so great. This is just what the devil would do, wrap himself in all these trappings, and just, it's so sacrilegious, his kind of Catholic trappings. Okay, so they're still signing him up for this mission. Tax-free, I guess. Who wouldn't?
As if that has anything to do with it.
Right. Honestly, I would do anything President Bartlett told me.
Well, but would you do anything Queenan told you? So the first time I saw this, I was really thrown off. I thought Martin Sheen's accent was pretty bad, and I thought Alec Baldwin's accent was pretty bad. But your ear for this has got to be better than mine. I was born in Boston, but I moved when I was just a wee thing.
Yes.
So, I have some kind of ear for it from my family, but you're a lot closer. So,
I thought they all did a pretty good job. This movie, they did well. Vera Farmiga, not so much. For some reason, I think it's harder for actresses because so a lot of the Boston accent, and I think this is what gets.
Here we go.
We're in prison. We got The Departed. All right,
we got the
Dropkick Murphys. Can I just say that growing up, your status in Boston is a little bit determined by how far removed you are from either the Wahlbergs or the Dropkick Murphys. And my friend's cousin was in the Dropkick Murphys, and the Wahlbergs at the start of New Kids on the Block lived a stone's throw away from where I grew up. So I was in a pretty high cast. But anyway, sorry. So yeah, the accent.
Actually, I visited my aunt in Brockton, and they drove us over to drive by his house for reasons I don't understand.
Did you hold up a sign? My aunt, who's not that much older than me, used to hold up posters in front of the house. Yeah, they were like the original boy band. Yeah, so the accents are pretty good in this movie, I think. But I think one of the things that gets missed, I feel like lazy actors, or ones who just aren't prepared, we'll just go through and find words that end with R, circle them, and mispronounce those. But the accent infects every utterance. It's a complete way of almost holding yourself. And so I think a lot of actresses, it's tough for them because their lines don't lend themselves to kind of being that aggressive or flippant. They have to be more kind of convey more sensitive feelings. I mean, if Ray Donovan, the wife in that, is, I think, the worst Boston accent I've ever heard from an actress. Again, I don't think it's their fault though. I think it's partly the role they have to play. But yeah, I don't know. The accents don't really bother me in this movie.
Okay.
The town bugged the shit out of me, but this one's not too bad.
And yeah, Ben Affleck should have known better. But
Right.
we're talking about this movie. So we got the American flag hanging out behind
Yep.
a very sleazy, pimpish looking Mark Ruffalo. Very greasy looking.
Yes. Well, it's funny. Later, he's gonna this character, right? So he's playing DiCaprio's cousin in this. Is gonna make a crack about Puerto Ricans, and actually, the actor is Puerto Rican. I love that little detail. But yeah, I'm not surprised by the American flag. I mean, these are all right. So again, this takes place probably what post.
If they knew shit, they wouldn't be Puerto Ricans. Oh my
There it
God.
is. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of bizarre patriotism, which I mean, honestly, there'd probably be more of an Irish flag there, but you'd see a lot of American flags in that neighborhood. But it would almost be patriotism, or a masquerade of patriotism. It would actually be a deep-seated racism behind it. I think I can say that as a inhabitant.
It's an expression of mook identity.
Yes.
Just kind of knucklehead.
Exactly.
So here we got Ray Winstone, who is on his own outside of his sidekick role. And
yeah, he's right now in this bar, he's the one in charge.
And I don't know. I think the Mark Ruffalo character is kind of a Boston type, just the kind of idiot ne'er-do-well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I suppose there are people like that everywhere, but with that Boston accent, I don't know. It just feels.
Yeah, that's what I call.
They're my friends. Met that guy.
Oh. Yeah. all my friends. Yeah, this is a great scene. This is so good. That's the thing about, again, DiCaprio's character and why I think he's able to pull it off. You saw him almost explode like that on Dignam in that scene, and now he lets it loose. So he has that in him as well.
Yeah, when Queenan says, "Yeah, we think battery is probably what you're going to go into jail for,"
right?
Given your history, like, yeah, there's a thing there.
They mentioned that when they were kind of breaking him down, they mentioned that he got expelled from Deerfield for hitting someone with a folding chair. So Deerfield is a very exclusive private boarding school. So again, you've got this guy he's from two worlds, right? And that's why he got this gig. And he kind of plays this really well. I love this cranberry juice moment.
Yeah,
the fact
doesn't want to say it.
With it. You'd think he would have pivoted and said, "Oh, give me a Jack."
Well, one of the things that his character does is pretends to be dumb in a lot of places, because if he lets them know how smart he is, it doesn't matter how right he is in agreeing with them or being on their side. They'll know he can't be trusted if he's smart enough.
That's true. Yikes.
And here we see, just how temperamental Irish pride can be.
Yeah. No, that's happened to me. I love. This is a great speech. Yeah, you were mentioning Baldwin's accent kind of bothered you, but honestly, the attitude overrode it. He's got the right attitude. It's.
I mean, Baldwin's such a New Yorker.
Right. Yeah, no, I know. He did a good job. Which actually reminds me, I heard that I think we'll see it later. Nicholson insisted on wearing a Yankees cap because in real life he just couldn't stand wearing a Boston Red Sox hat, even though it makes no sense. So these microprocessors are worth like $7 each. They're like they're worth $1,000.
Someone on the production did not do their homework on the
No,
what the actual processors would look like.
yeah, I think they trusted that we would just go with the flow, which is so much in what happens in
So
movies.
this is the fellow who was Miles Kinnifick. He was the funeral, right, that we had just heard about in the previous
Yes,
scene.
yes, exactly. And you have to imagine he would have been one of those young kids getting lectured to by Frank when Colin was a kid, you know, by the car. Like he probably was part of that child gang.
Yep.
What a-
Yeah, almost Dickens-esque. So one of the things that in that speech that he was getting at is Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger and a businessman who some of his business was not entirely on the up and up, and some of it kind of legal, but not ethical
Right.
and wouldn't be legal today. And his son, right, JFK, became president. And so with Matt Damon, right, looking at the court, at the, not the courthouse, but the state house, right, early on.
Yeah.
And later we find out he's taking law classes. He actually wants to be legit someday. Like that's in his head. He wants to be at the top.
Yeah, well, exactly. And this is part of Boston history. So Costello is based on Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger was Irish mob boss who ran parts of the city. His brother, Billy Bulger, was president of the Senate and then president of UMass. So there's a long standing connection. I mean, it's almost like Tammany Hall kind of corruption. But
But let's say a relationship.
yeah, a relationship. But it was interesting. My father was telling me that when he was growing, or sort of back in the day, he says it was the three P's of what you could become: priest, police officer, or prison. And he said it was not uncommon to have all three in a family among brothers, and it wasn't like they would be estranged. They were still brothers. They still had that connection. So there's very fluid. So this is the meet cute between Matt Damon, the sociopath, and this psychologist, Madeline. I love how he holds up the elevator here. This is just a great sort of romantic comedy moment shoved into a brutal crime drama.
Yeah. So now he mentions going to law school. I think they don't show that really,
No,
that he's going to law school. So on
that
the other hand, if
means
they
he's
did,
got
it may have been 3 hours rather than 2.5.
yeah, maybe they cut that out. But that sort of signals he's got political ambitions ultimately. So, yeah,
And here we see
she's charmed by him. I mean, he's so damn charming, which is part of his character, being a mole.
well, and you mentioned our dear president, number 45, earlier. Right? He's saying the kind of things Trump would say, except he's charming enough and, stating him in a way that's funny where you actually trust that he knows that he's crossing a line. Unlike our president, who I think sometimes seems completely unaware that he's crossed a line.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So is Nicholson wearing, I think he's just wearing a black cap here, and he's got his girlfriend is wearing a Boston cap.
Yeah. So all right. We had a little bit of authenticity there. So now these are the guys up from Providence mob guys. And again, this is the same convenience store from the opening, but notice that no longer
It's Pakistani now.
Yeah. So we're about to witness some violence. And I think a Stones song that is played in like most of Scorsese's movies, probably not in the new movie Silence about Jesuit priests, but Scorsese obviously a Stones fanatic.
Well, he's in love with Gimme Shelter, and it appears in his two previous great gangster movies that are period appropriate to use it, Goodfellas and Casino. So
Yes. Oh, actually, I don't think this is the Stones scene, but I think we heard it earlier. But anyways, it's in there. I don't know. Maybe this would be. There's really.
and this is, oh God, this
Yeah.
is, I love the, once you turn on the violence, it's hard to turn off. So he's stabbing this guy in the face with the top of an umbrella stand.
You're right.
Hat stand, coat stand.
Again, they always do such a great job of juxtaposing DiCaprio's character going through hell while Damon's character is, having dessert. So there's a real sense that sell your soul to the devil and you get all these nice things. I don't know. I find it's hard to watch this movie not through a Catholic lens. It just feels like every Sunday school lesson I ever had.
Infernal Affairs has a Buddhist context and begins with an epigraph from the Buddha, which says, "He who is in continuous hell does not die."
Oh, wow.
Now, that's clearly not going to work for a movie called The Departed.
Right.
But you get a sense that,
Oh, and here, sorry to interrupt, here we have this great line about Freud, what Freud said about the Irish. He's negging her. Do you know this concept of negging? He does this just constantly. He's sort of.
What is negging?
It's like, it's this horrible thing. It's like, I feel like it's from like The Game by Neil Strauss. It's kind of like if you want to get a woman interested in you, you sort of almost insult her lightly or you ignore her. And that's supposed to kind of activate her insecurity and make her desire you somehow. But he's just constantly doing that to her. He's always pushing her off guard, then pulling her back. And it's almost like he sort of destabilizing her so she never quite sees him clearly,
Well, and this is what happened in the early scene where you watched Frank Costello go into the place, shake the guy down, and he says something really demeaning. He says something complimentary about how he should be proud of his daughter. And then I think he asks her if she had her period yet, and she's upset with him. And then he leans in and whispers something into her ear that seems to make her like him again.
And then he tips her.
Yeah.
But isn't that a great representation of how the mob operates in a small town? That, there's violence, but then there's also, you get a perk for participating, however tacitly.
But there's also a sense that you push, but you don't keep pushing.
Right. Exactly. There's kind of this underlying threat that keeps people in control or enthralled. All right, we're really getting into the weeds, but we did miss when he said that Freud said that the Irish are impervious to psychoanalysis, which made me think a lot about Good Will Hunting. But also, Freud never said that. That's from Anthony Burgess, apparently, attributing that to Freud. So I think, but again, I think I would guess Monahan is a Burgess fan. So this is the meeting with the devil.
So Frank Costello is catching up with Billy after his dust up with the Providence mob. And he doesn't know what to make of Billy. Right.
They see something in him, some potential, I guess, because of his lineage and also, ordering cranberry juice, being a little quiet, being different. Somehow they see something there. He's not a typical fuck up, loudmouth.
On the other hand, it's hard to know who to trust.
Yes, exactly. So here he's laying it out. He's like, these guys are going to come back and kill you. Or...
which as sure as you're born, they will do unless I stop them.
Yep.
And here is Billy playing dumb again.
And did you see the American flag in the background behind Frank?
Yep.
Yeah. This is a motif now.
So Billy says, "Is this something I can't do personally?"
He's sort of, yeah, you're right. He's kind of playing naive. and it's working. It works, you know.
He thinks, he wants to be independent. He doesn't want to join the mob.
Damon's character is just all like has a smart answer for everything, and he's doing the opposite. So now they're looking for a wire, I'm assuming.
A wire or a recorder or something, yeah.
Yes. And they've got... so this is the double act, like Dignam and Queenum. Now we've got Frank and French.
And Frank is a little bit intrigued because he's pushing against Billy and Billy's pushing back at the wrong times.
Yeah.
So they searched him and he's clean. But
that's right.
He broke his hand and is dust up with the mob guys. God. So the cast has to come off.
Oh, this reminds me of my last physical therapy appointment. He's clean. This is so great. Yeah, see, it was interesting. I mean, I was thinking about Queenan as a name. I don't know, it's chess to me. I feel like it's a chess reference.
Oh, you mean like Queen?
Oh. Yeah, I think so. Sorry, just watching someone getting their broken arm hit by a Timberland. They really don't like his cousin.
Nobody likes his cousin.
No, I don't think he makes another appearance. You know what's funny is that when Damon and Affleck wanted to make Good Will Hunting, the studios all wanted it to star DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. And now we have DiCaprio and Damon fighting it out. And in this, Damon's character was initially cast as Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt was going to play Colin, which is hard to see.
Well, something close to... here's a great line.
Yeah.
The devil again.
Yep. The more I think about it, the more I see it's just his way. Like everybody is off center because he's so unpredictable.
So this is a weird scene in that it throws off the parallelism. I mean, maybe it makes the movie better because if we notice it too much, it gets annoying. But right, this scene is from neither of those two characters' point of view.
Right.
We've got Mr. French and Costello just hanging out, and Costello's Squeeze is there, kind of being ignored. He throws a phone at her.
Well, you know why this scene is in there, I'm assuming, and the later crazy opera scene is because they cast Jack Nicholson, and he said, I want more scenes. I want to be more of a major player in this. He's about to sing some Irish. You can't tell me this Irish song he's about to sing right here was in the script. This is Jack. There's no way. Because this doesn't serve any purpose except just building him up as a villain.
Well, it does develop their character, and what they're demonstrating is for these two guys, killing is a way of life, and they don't feel anything about it. And of course, here we've got the scene blends into the police investigating the bodies, and Colin doesn't seem any worked up at all either. He makes a joke about how he's traumatized and needs to see his girlfriend again, who's the therapist.
Now did Infernal Affairs have this kind of constant cell phone motif? Like everybody's always on cell phones, switching SIM cards, texting in their pockets, switching phones?
Not quite as much. Now, so Infernal Affairs, it's a Chinese film from 2002, 2 years before this one. I'm not sure where the technology was then. There was some of that. But I think one of the reasons why Scorsese gets away with it, even though it shouldn't work in a movie,
Right.
it completely is just how he edits the hell out of these movies and how he can sneak things in without seeming to belabor a point.
Right. And everybody, when those two scenes, people, when so they were talking on the phone, but they were each being watched, so it could have been two people talking through a confessional screen or something like that, in another movie before cell phones. They would have had to come up with some device. So there's still tension of them being watched and having to talk in code, I guess. But this bathrobe is just too much. I mean,
clothes are pretty ugly. So Billy again steps in it, probably on purpose.
Yeah. And here we've got the hand. Out.
Yep, and the squeeze sees him with the hand in the Ziploc bag.
Yep. Oh, and it's got a wedding ring. This is not how a severed hand would be. It would be curled. The fingers would be curled inwards, John. Okay. That's not from experience, but
I'm guessing the wrist meat would not look as clean as that, probably.
Yeah. Yes. So again, just relentless mind games.
Well, I think that so he's a little bit upset with Billy. Okay. He had this, and message delivered. Billy's dumping his wire.
That's me trying to turn my iPod off anytime.
And Diggum says, "That was quick. Do you think he's dead already?"
Microprocessors.
Where is he now?
New York City. That looked like New York to me. I didn't get a good glance, but okay. I don't know. It's downtown, I guess. It's hard to tell. I mean, I think the way they framed it, that makes me seem like they're using a stand-in city. You couldn't really see much. Jimmy had a rough month.
So this movie's a lot longer than Infernal Affairs, and a lot of it has to do with just scenes like this where we, this could be handled with a sentence or it just could be cut out.
Yep.
But we feel like we know these characters a lot more.
It's also, again, you've got the religious reference here, and then that's a kind of baptism. There's such a nihilism in the dialogue. Scorsese did say when he was editing it, he was very depressed because there's sort of no redemption in the movie, Ugh, teeth being spit out.
What, you're not getting squeamish on me, are you, Will?
No, it's just bringing back so many memories of my days in the mob. Now, look, there's boxing in the background. I don't know. It's just, everything's thought out. I mean, they think about the background. I mean, this is stuff you'd have to watch a million times, like a hawk, to see some of this stuff.
The guy don't need any fucking teeth anyway.
Right.
So I like, again, the mercurial, like, I'm ready to kill for this guy. Fuck him. That's
right. Again, like, it works to his advantage to be sort of a bad fit, right? It's yep. Weird. It's weird.
When, in fact, watching the scene, like, what should he have done differently?
Right, exactly.
And so here we have Colin, who's been in charge of a separate, smaller unit, whose task it is to find the mole in the organization. He could solve that in one sentence if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to because he is the mole.
Right. He's in charge of looking for himself. It's like, and then again, the High Dad. He's always playing as if Costello's his father, and then later there's going to be a scene when they say "call your mother." So, oh god,
they get this kind of domestic code going.
The disgusted nun. The surveillance.
You know, whatever she's doing, she needed to take longer.
Yeah. This is an exact callback to Gangs of New York, right? In which DiCaprio comes under the wing of a gangster who killed his father. And right now Nicholson is asking him, what would your father say if he saw you here?
You can't do anything with a man like that.
No. Uncle Jackie, he was better. When I think about this.
That's what I love about Nicholson's speeches here is, what the fuck are we talking about here? The audience is wondering that too. Do you ever think about going back to school? And here, Billy could do anything he wants with his life if he goes to school, and he has to pretend like, nope, not interested.
And you can see the shadow of Frank having told Colin to go to school, to go to law school,
Yep.
Oh, God. So, evoking the church sex abuse scandal, as every Boston movie must do at some point.
Though, as the devil, he gets to claim the high ground here.
Yeah. God, he's sick. Pay them. He's constant. Every scene ends with him handing out money.
So I've never freeze framed this to find out what that illustration was of.
I didn't either. I just assumed it was something sexual. Thought that was a safe bet. So this is a contortionist scene. I mean, right now we have someone who everyone knows works for Frank, who's about to talk to someone who secretly works for Frank, and then there's somebody else watching who Colin doesn't know also works for Frank, and then only is that guy's name? Anthony Edwards, or I'm blanking on his name, but the DiCaprio's friend from State Police Academy.
Anthony Anderson.
He's the only one in this entire scene who has any integrity. And the rest of it is just a kind of kabuki theater.
And he was friends with Billy, not Colin, at the academy.
Right, exactly. Which is not going to turn out well for him, but...
So, what I love is just the types that Scorsese finds to be in these movies. This guy, he may be a perfectly nice person, but I wouldn't want to cross him.
No. No, definitely not. See, you can see why Frank is grooming Billy, because he's got thugs. He's got these sort of who don't look like they've got too high of an IQ. He's going to need someone smart to eventually take over French's position, or at least, be a number 3.
Or be in position should something happen to Mr. French.
Right. Because again, and this is spoilers, we find out at the end that Frank is always talking to the FBI. He's actually an informant. So there might be a time when he's going to have to dump French.
And I think that's the craziest moment in this movie.
Yes.
Is when you find out that the person they're trying to get has kind of been cooperating with the government the whole time.
Yeah, so I saw this movie, I think it came out in like October 2006, and then the next week I went to the movies, or maybe like a month later, and I saw another movie, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized they were the same movie. And that movie is called The Prestige. And that movie also features a rivalry, and it's got a father figure, it's got a woman who's shared between the two rivals, it's got these twists and turns, gunshot at the end. I mean, do a double header, and you will see what I saw. But there's something kind of it's a sort of a mystery box. It's like a puzzle. Both movies. The Prestige, it's more on the surface. It's the content, but in this, it's just the sort of background story of all this characters intersecting. And then here she is eating a banana. I mean, we talked about Freud.
Paging Mr. Freud. Yeah.
Yes.
While she is going to mention his erectile dysfunction.
This is not a subtle movie.
One of the ways that you can get men to overcome sexual dysfunction, among those possible solutions, talking a lot about it.
Confronting them about it?
Yeah, not likely to work. And so we go right from there to her first meeting with Billy. And it's where the parallel stories start to intersect.
Her womb will be where they intersect. So I was going to say that I heard that Vera Farmiga, everyone did their own little research. Like Matt Damon went out with the state police, and DiCaprio talked to some Irish connected people. Well, Vera Farmiga apparently talked to like a police psychologist who read the script and said, your character did everything wrong. And this is kind of an amazing scene, how it ends.
Well, I think when I started, this commentary, I mentioned how what I love about gangster films is just they let in more honesty than you normally get.
Yes.
In Hollywood storytelling. And so, her speech with Billy here, right? She normally talks to cops. Sometimes she talks to prisoners out on parole.
Yep.
And what she doesn't know with Billy is she's talking to both.
Right.
At the same time. And, while Colin can make all kinds of crazy jokes about her, about committing crimes and kind of mocking everything, what Billy here is doing is dropping a lot of truth on her. Partly he's testing her and lashing out.
Right. You'd think that she, as a psychologist, would be able to see through Colin, but apparently not.
Maybe he is cute.
It's Matt Damon, I guess.
And so,
how'd you know he was a cop? This is great.
Bad haircut, no dress sense, and a slight, air of scumbag entitlement.
She seems sort of thrown off pretty much the entire movie, which is strange because this is her job. So theoretically, she would be seeing and hearing this kind of thing all the time, but in a different way with him. It's a kind of a different quality. It's because he's being honest. He's not really.
Yeah, so they know they have to weep after they use their weapons. There is no more full of shit. There's no one more full of shit than a cop, except for a cop on TV.
Yes. Well, they said this earlier. Queen and said, do you want to be a cop or do you want to appear to be a cop? Which is also a conversation that people in law enforcement have a lot, because it often attracts people who grew up getting arrested or in trouble with cops, and then at some point, maybe around age 20, suddenly the switch flicks and now they want to be a cop. It's a kind of a bizarre phenomenon.
Well, they want the authority.
Yes.
I mean, I can legally walk around with a gun?
It's like a status. It's a sense of self, you know? And so this is him being a cop and not appearing to be a cop. Now, I'm trying to place this for our not Boston people, but again,
wow, look at how whited out the background is.
You can see what they're doing. They're, like this, they did the same thing when they were outside. He's always almost punching someone.
He knocks the cup out of his hand. Here's the thing: Diggum does not take the bait at all,
right?
And he just gets back up in his face. Oh, now it's for real.
Now it's broken out. But like, this could be any city they could have filmed this in. This could be North Shore, South Shore of Boston. This could be,
well, a lot of green, so it's not Brooklyn.
All right, well, there's the red line. So, okay, so maybe that was off 93. Did Martin Sheen get an elbow in that scene? Because I would be irate. That man was the president.
So I love how calm Queenan is, and Billy doesn't seem to remember what's needed to make the legal case against Costello.
No, he wants out from like day one, pretty much. He's having a panic attack at all times. Again, it's like you would think they would pull him out just based on his behavior. Like, look what he just did. Look at him for 2 seconds.
Well, his first meeting with Costello treats him as exactly what he is in order to test him. And he passes the test, right? But immediately, Costello just thinks, oh, he was probably sent by Keenan to fuck me up.
Right. You know, it's funny you mentioned Dickens, because he is an orphan. He's always looking at these pictures of his dead family. But that's who gets recruited, right? For CIA, for spy work. It's these people who have no entanglements. You know, they don't, sort of off grid. All right, so now he wants Valium. So
if you lied, you'd have an easier time getting what you wanted. And
yep.
Yeah, basically saying, well, that just rewards liars.
This is the opposite of negging. This is the opposite. Yeah, he wants pills, all right? I'm sure. I think Colin needs some pills as well, just different kind.
And so I think the first time I saw this, I kind of hated Billy because he's wound up so tight that it's so painful to watch. And I think, I've seen this movie a couple of times now. Every time DiCaprio's performance gets better. It's not at 11 every single time. It never drops to a 3 in terms of how calm he is.
Right.
It hovers at like 5, but
the pacing helps. If this was shot by sort of a generic director, Steadicam, he would look out of control. But it's shot like a music video, essentially. This is the steadiest shot we've had in a while, so it kind of helps his agitated performance. So again, this could be anywhere. I mean, but yeah, so she gives him a prescription, 20 lorazepam, and he's wearing the Red Sox hat. So I guess that's how you get it.
So
I don't know why he's that. I don't know why he's that. I'm sorry, I don't know why he's that pleased. 20 lorazepam's not going to do that much. So what's with the black Red Sox hat?
Yeah, there's a black bee on it.
Yeah, no, there's all different varieties. There's a, believe it or not, there's a pink Red Sox hat which became popular among female fans, of which there were a new wave once the Red Sox started winning World Series. So
So
maybe
an all black Red
I
Sox
think
cap
it's
because
as manly
a
as you
normal
can
Red
get.
Sox cap just isn't masculine enough.
Yes, exactly. It's not dark enough.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really sad.
You can express it. I mean, there's green Red Sox hats with red bees. I guess that's sort of, you'd be expressing some Irish pride in that way. I'm trying to think what
It all
else I've
seems
seen.
so fucking confusing.
Yeah. The Red Sox, this is right. I mean, the Red Sox won in their first, they escaped the curse of the Bambino in 2004. So this was shortly after that. So it really kind of, the culture changed. Once they started winning, it attracted a different crowd. It used to be more of a working class kind of thing.
Well, do people in Boston wear Red Sox hats?
Yes. But again, it's like once Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore are making rom-coms about it, it just changed. It's different.
Oh
But no,
man.
you still see Red Sox hats. I would say right now the Patriots are sort of have most of the energy in this city for sports teams. They're the heroes right now.
In 1984, my family took a 2-week trip to Boston, and I wanted to see the Celtics play. I wanted to see the Bruins play. And Disney on Ice was there the entire 2 fucking weeks we were there. So no Larry Bird for me.
No, that is tragic. It's the worst thing I ever heard. Yeah, this mistress slash wife is always sort of like the Madonna slash whore, you know? She's going to choir practice, she's got this veil on.
Well, she has to be mysterious to keep his interest.
Right. It's gotta be perverse for him to be interested, I think.
All right, so we've got kind of all the cops doing their job in the same room at the same time. We haven't seen this.
This is I think this is what they call a set piece. We're about to have a handoff.
And
where are we in the I'm guessing we're an hour in. If I had, yeah.
Yep. 1 hour in. We got the classic shot of Baldwin, Sheen, and Damon, and their faces are aligned so that you can kind of see them all in profile.
Yes, it's the Mount Rushmore of Boston Police. We've got the inside the pocket texting, which
we got Diggum pacing around, going,
my life depended on it. Yeah, we got, right.
He's pacing around like, I know something's up. One of these fuckers is going to ruin it.
Yes. So coming from a law enforcement family without divulging any trade secrets, to get the warrants that would be required and the intel to set up surveillance on something, like this is the Super Bowl. So I don't know if being outside the field, you would understand how much would be riding on this. Because it would just have required months and months of preparation, or years.
So one of the interesting things about this scene is they're about to make a deal for the microprocessors with the Chinese. And of course, the other deal made with the Chinese is this movie is based on a Chinese film, Infernal Affairs. And I was kind of hoping that some of the actors from Infernal Affairs would be in this scene, but not so much.
No, I mean, all we get is we're going to get a chase through Chinatown later, but that's about as far as well, apparently Scorsese didn't even watch Infernal Affairs till after he made the movie, so I think there was only the lightest allusions.
Well, a lot of the film, based on Monahan's script, follows it pretty closely. Right, a lot of more character development. So, kind of following the racism we saw earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
There's this weird back and forth with the Chinese gang he's about to do business with, in that he can be tough and kind of try and give them some tough guy respect while simultaneously uh yeah, Bruce
Yeah.
Lee and the Karate Kid
Yep.
and
In this
and then
country,
he
yeah. Again, it's reminding me of just a companion piece to Gangs of New York, in which the Irish immigrants were the, you know, outsiders, the filth, the scum turning up on these shores.
the Irish need not apply was a
Exactly.
sign in a lot of places where you could get a job.
So it's sort of, and then if you remember at the end of that movie, they kind of did a really cool shot where they showed a graveyard and then gradually built up, sort of like fast forwarded through over the course of what, a century, and saw New
I've
York
completely blanked out
building
Gangs
up.
of New York.
So yeah, I think
Any second that Daniel Day-Lewis wasn't on screen, I was going, why am I watching this? This is so painful.
Daniel Day-Lewis isn't hurling a hatchet. I'm not interested. Yeah, I think DiCaprio's gotten more and more. His performances have gotten more and more turned up over the years. His like stated influence, what he wants to be, is Nicholson. That's the kind of career he wants, which was not apparent at the beginning of his career, but he managed it, because after Wolf of Wall Street, The Revenant, he mostly growls now.
Well, I think, he was nominated for an Oscar. Maybe he won for What's Eating Gilbert Grape way back early.
Yep.
And I remember he was in Woody Allen's Celebrity, where he plays himself as a womanizing, drug-addled maniac, kind of making fun of the dreamy Leonardo.
Right.
No ticky, no laundry.
So,
he's such a dick.
Yeah, he's the worst. All right, so we're having the deals being made.
So yeah, I don't know how many millions of dollars for these. What, that has to be at least $100 worth of microprocessors there.
Yeah. Exactly. So they didn't get the footage they needed, and now you're about to see what it looks like when people in law enforcement are disappointed. It's not pretty.
They didn't figure we had a Navy.
Right. This is like if
So Infernal Affairs, it was drugs. Oh yeah, can I talk to you a minute,
yeah.
please?
Yeah.
What he had to say is, "You stupid fucking hard on." Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty accurate, I have to say. That doesn't feel played up for the movies. All right.
So in Glen Ross, Glen Gary, right? Alec Baldwin looks amazing in a suit, and in this movie, he looks like a schlubby guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this scene actually looks remarkably similar to the scene in Infernal Affairs.
So apparently there's an X motif. I saw this online once, that anybody who appears with an X behind them is gonna get it in the end. It's like a
lot of X's here.
Yeah. So
a lot of cross beams.
He's been marked. And that little girl with the
he
pink,
just died about 30 times.
That
in
little
that
girl,
little.
That little girl with the pink backpack is Scorsese's granddaughter, I think.
So was that Logan?
I don't know.
Or was that JFK?
No,
he's calling him from the airport. He's about to get on a plane and just fucking leave.
Right.
And Diggum talks him into sticking around.
He's like, look, why don't you date your psychiatrist? It's getting pretty serious. It's very serious. Yeah, so now he's starting to make his move. And she says there are ups and downs, as DiCaprio said earlier in the movie, quoting Hawthorne. Families in America are always going up and down.
4 months in, if you can't say you're happy, that's not a good sign.
No, it's not. Yeah,
Especially if you're a lawyer, a psychologist from Harvard.
right. I think he's trying to peel her away.
Well, and like a lot of women eager to start her domestic life, she is talking herself into this. Men can do it too.
Right. That was a Photoshop.
This isn't such a horrible idea.
That was photoshopped. But his apartment is so great. He's got all this technology. He's got a weirdly intense stereo system, which will be used later. He's got a view of the State House. I mean, yeah, he's got all the trappings. What does Billy have? A Valium addiction and a leather jacket.
His mother's shitty house.
Yeah.
With his dead mother's belongings in it. And a handful of pictures.
Yes.
Whereas Colin wants all the pictures put away. No past. No
Right.
memory.
Exactly. He's got to.
So the whole State House motif is not in the screenplay.
Really?
Yeah. So
I believe. I mean,
that's got to be
I believe
Scorsese or the cinematographer making that call.
Well,
because it's such a big part of this movie, and it's not there in the script.
It's such an iconic. I mean, how could you not put it on film once you see it at that gold dome? It's very cinematic.
Well, I think it messes up the end of the movie, but
why? Yeah. Because of the extremely obvious symbolism of a rat scurrying across.
Yeah, we will get there.
We'll save our fire.
And so here we have. Whenever you have a legit person and a mob person who are affiliated having a conversation, the mob person is always going to insist on a lot more brutal reality than the legit person.
Right.
And they're going to rake them over the coals for it because, they get pissed about it. So he talks very crassly about this, the girlfriend, yes. Madeline. So, all right, where is Costello now? Is that Boston?
It's so hard to tell. I know I'm probably being frustrating. It's so hard to tell. I'm sure there's people out there who would say could
be Montreal,
it, but everything.
Could be Mississippi.
Yeah, exactly. Like whenever they shoot outside, it's so circumscribed. It's hard to. You're only getting only brief glimpses. It could be kind of anywhere. But
far out. I don't know exactly what's happening. In terms of how they're getting the lighting, but it's so washed out.
Right, exactly. I know. It could be the seaport. Look how they're filming him. You're not seeing anything around. But yeah, I mean, Boston's on the water. It's got the seaport. There's a million spots that this could be. I guess if he's a Southie guy, could be.
Well, he's going to walk out here, have a conversation with.
Yeah, so this is starting to look like the seaport to me more and more, which has been kind of completely built up over the last 10 years. There's a lot more condos and cultural places, the ICA, and they're just, it's under construction constantly.
Coldest I've ever been was trying to get to the ICA.
Yes.
I think on a February morning.
Yep.
I'm still surprised I'm alive.
The ICA is still there, but they built a giant building in front of it. I think it's condos. So you can't see it sort of as you approach. It's really hemmed it in. Yeah. So this is okay. So there's gonna be a moment coming up which I've got a local reference for. I think, if I remember correctly, Frank is going to pass in front of a parade, a religious parade with some...
A processional.
Yeah, processional, right. And so those little girls dressed as angels, they are from...
He's got a date with an angel.
Yes, date with an angel. They were brought in from Sacred Heart parish in Weymouth. It's where my father grew up with his siblings, and they went to Heart.
Weymouth.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And they went to Sacred Heart, the school, the Catholic school affiliated with that parish. There they are. And shortly before filming started, Sacred Heart burned down. And my grandfather had been part of the fundraising committee. And so he was helping to raise funds to rebuild Sacred Heart. And Scorsese read about it and said, well, if you send me some girls for this processional, I'll donate towards the reconstruction. So it's rebuilt now, thanks to Scorsese, in part at least. And then we have a picture frame smashing into someone's face. So the end of that story.
Religious iconography over the skull.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Again, not a subtle film. So
and
now
here comes the bombshell.
Yeah.
And Ray Winstone is just throwing off firecrackers for no good reason at all. It's a holiday. So why not just, throw M80s on the street?
It reminds me of Godfather 2 with the, with the parade outside.
Vito Corleone kills the gangster.
Yeah. All right, so here we are. We're finding out Costello's an informant, which is the Whitey Bulger story. He was killing dozens of people while being protected by the FBI. So that's going to really mess up his brain. So he's waiting outside. So this is like, again, it's like this, the reflection, right? So you've got perverse Frank, and then you've got domesticated, properly Catholic President Bartlett going into his home, again, with an unironic flag in the suburbs. I don't know what suburb this is. They don't give you enough, but you've got the religious iconography there. I think he mentions that his son goes to Notre Dame in this scene. Yeah, that's my son Patrick, most Irish name possible, goes to Notre Dame. And do you remember Bartlett in West Wing was a Notre Dame alum? So it's all connecting.
Go Boilers.
Yeah. But so this is the kind of father he's needed.
One of my alma maters tends to play Notre Dame a lot.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
It's hard for me to let go of that, even though I had a PhD. I don't know why I give a shit.
Well, I went to Boston College, so we hate Notre Dame as well. So it's all good. Now, apparently, this opera was Nicholson's idea, and I saw that the opera is an homage to Scarface, in which one of the characters would whistle a tune from this opera. And then this is a kind of presage to Wolf of Wall Street, coke use, I feel like. This is just the wackiest scene.
That's just a waste of coke, if you ask me.
Yeah, everyone's on drugs right now.
Though that would be the point,
Yeah. Oh, here we go. It's so great, a guy named Mr. French asking him for his real name.
Yeah, so here they're following through on Colin's request for more information so he can figure out who the mole is.
And then we get an interesting spelling of citizens. Anytime a movie shows you something this minute for this long, it's a plant and it will be significant later.
Well, that detail is also in Infernal Affairs, and so they're using Chinese lettering.
There you go. Again, by sort of being off key, Costigan is solidifying himself in that gang. I feel like. So now, yeah, all right, he's gonna
It's his only move.
creepily knock on his psychiatrist's door at night in the rain.
All right. So does this scene work for you? I don't mean erotically. I mean dramatically. Uh,
uh, yeah.
is it believable?
Yeah, because the thing is, everybody, okay, so everybody in this movie is lying to everybody else, but she's lying to herself, right? She knows there's something wrong with her relationship with Colin. There's that terrible picture. So fake. Uh, but
It's just a bit grainy.
so he's kind of like sort of the truth, her, that's in her, she's trying to suppress, kind of knocking on the door, So,
Right. But you don't have to have sex to figure out what the truth is.
oh,
Unless
I
that is
thought
the
you did.
truth you're looking for.
Yeah. Well,
Although it probably does help if the erectile dysfunction has been continuing and
right.
she's not had sex in a while, well, then there's that desire that needs to get fulfilled.
Yeah, she's like a super repressed character. And so this is when her walls break down. So I thought, I don't know, a lot of the work of the scene is the music. I forget what song it is, but it's very like, I feel like Tom Cruise and Top Gun made out to this music. But I feel like, yeah, the
I
song
think
does a
it's the
lot of the
sadness of the
dramatic work.
wallpaper. You have to have sex just to dilute the effect of the depressiveness of the
This is a spinster's
black and white
apartment.
floral wallpaper.
But
Yeah.
it's so good, right? Because she's moving from this basement apartment to Colin's kind of like penthouse. So again, there's that upward mobility in that relationship. It's material, but this is the emotional and physical.
So I'm on the fence about, the dramatic utility of this scene. Like it's there to make sure that the two stories perfectly come together.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, I don't not buy it, but I don't know if I'm completely persuaded.
Yeah, I mean,
I think her character isn't as interesting as it needed to be, even though it's almost there.
right, right. That we don't get enough of. I mean, I'm kind of like projecting. It takes a lot of inferring to develop her character, but why she would do this, why she would make this decision. There's not, yeah, you don't get a lot from her, but she
She's from
just,
Harvard.
yeah. Although it's
She's
weird because she says later she's had a Harvard sweatshirt, but then in the elevator scene she said she went to UMass. So I think that was a little glitch. Now this is another little. I love this is such a great scene.
well, did you go to UMass for one of her other degrees, or was it?
It's possible. It's
I
possible.
think that's what happened.
Possible, but because yeah, she made a point. They had a discussion. He says, "Oh, I'm going to Suffolk," and he says, "Oh, Harvard doesn't do night school," and she says, "Well, I went to UMass. I'm not being a snob." But I guess anybody can buy a Harvard T-shirt.
So it's aspirational, that Harvard T-shirt.
It might be. It might be.
So here we have Alec Baldwin being relentlessly heteronormative.
Yeah, and really hammering home Matt Damon's
Right.
impotence in this film. All right,
Ellerby.
God, he's chewing on a toothpick. This guy's a mess. Now it's
and
gone.
his
The
hair.
toothpick is
His
gone.
hair
He
is
probably
just
ate it.
so slovenly in this movie. I don't know that I've seen Nicholson with a goatee before, which is probably why we keep leaning into all these devil things.
So this is like, I think this is meant to take place in what was called the Combat Zone, which was a rough part of Boston, which is now, since at least the 90s, been cleaned up. There used to be these theaters there.
If you look really closely in the back, there's Travis Bickle.
Exactly. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a porn theater in Boston these days. And this is I don't know what to say. I mean I don't know what to say. Don't know what to say. But I did hear that that was Nicholson's idea. Again, I think he just made this role what it is. American flag hat. We've got a few of those in my family's closet. In the chain. This is this is all very authentic. God, look at that hair.
So, have you seen Black Mass?
I have, yes. And okay, so I thought Johnny Depp's performance was totally over the top just because of the contact lenses. I mean, his eyes were like great white shark eyes, like weird blue eyes, and then he was so pale and sort of light complexioned. I thought anybody who would see him would just absolutely run in the other direction. And yet, we were supposed to believe that he was able to, get women and have all this influence. You'd have to be someone charismatic to do that. So that was the problem I had with that movie. But what were you going to say about it?
Well, I mean, it tells
the Bulger tale,
kind of the nonfiction version, right, of part of this movie. And for a movie that I had no expectations for, I thought it was pretty great. But I'm not that well versed in the Bulger story, so they could be just making up all kinds of stuff, whole cloth, and I wouldn't know the difference.
I mean, I think it was based on a nonfiction book, so I think it was somewhat trustworthy. It's just so what that movie did well is showed Bulger's handler, Conley, right? The FBI guy that was helping him. You never see that in this movie. You never see Frank's contact, right, with the FBI, which is probably smart because there's already so much going on, and it's a long enough film as it is. Oh God!
All right, so
we're about to get the chase through Chinatown.
Costello has given Colin the dossier with all the information he wanted.
Yep.
Not completely filled out by Costigan, and now he's literally being followed. Like Costigan is now 20 feet behind him.
I know, it's not
from the dirty movie theater.
Yeah, they're both dressed exactly the same, pretty much, aside from that American flag patch. So we're about to get an evocation of both the source material being in Chinatown, and then also I seem to remember a lot of mirrors kind of clanging around in this scene, and I feel like that's a big part of what this movie does. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, this was my memory. So at this point, he knows he's being followed. There's the X. So he knows he's being followed.
I think you just discovered a drinking game.
Yes. I think this is related to the X-Men somehow. All right, make arrest. Okay.
If you can find him. If he can get there.
Here we go. Moment of tension. I don't know if you've ever stabbed anyone in an alley, John, but it's very tense.
Not that I remember.
He's got the delivery man.
So he's just committed a murder for no good reason at all.
Yeah. People need to start dressing differently. This wouldn't happen. Everybody's wearing the same clothes. You might get stabbed. Again, I'm not familiar with that block. New York has a Chinatown. Could be New York.
So Colin, yeah,
Now he's looking at the surveillance photos.
he knows he's on the surveillance photo, and he also knows, yeah, the guy following me also would have ended up on the surveillance photo. So he's
You're gonna need something a little more high res. Here's the citizens.
and so this is, you know, for I don't know, the last 10, 20 minutes, we're starting to see Colin emerge into a state of hell where he doesn't feel like he can rely on anything.
Right.
His sense of ease is disappearing. Sometimes it comes back, it bounces back, but
Yeah, that whole interaction he had with Frank in that porn theater kind of is a turning point where I think he begins to feel like Frank is not reliable. That I think that's the beginning of the end of their relationship a little bit. So he just spit some water or whatever.
he was making this beautiful pencil sketch and then spits wine all over it.
Right. I guess it was not in the script or not planned that he would take a gun out at some point in this scene, but a gun's going to make an appearance.
I love stuff like that. So in the original Godfather, when Sonny gets out of the car to attack his brother-in-law,
Yeah.
he had a stick in the car, and that wasn't in the script. It wasn't in rehearsal. And so when what's his name, the actor playing Sonny, jumps out of the car, right, there was supposed to be all this back and forth, all this shit talking, and instead he pops out of the car with his giant fucking stick and starts running after him. So when he looks surprised and scared, that's because, yeah.
Right.
What's the difference? So he's quoting Frank back to himself.
Right.
And he wasn't even there necessarily.
Right, exactly.
At the beginning of the movie when he gave that speech.
Oh, this is so. Here we go. There's the.
Takes a looks down the barrel.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're 70 years old, Frank. All right, so I have a question for you. You've been doing the Shakespeare blog for a while, right?
Yeah.
How well versed are you with the Jacobean revenge plot? This would be like a Hamlet. It's kind of it's kind of a conventional plot where there's usually it's about a character getting revenge. Usually maybe a father figure has appeared as a ghost and said, "I need vengeance." So it's kind of a revenge plot, but there are usual sort of plot devices. One is madness or feigned madness. There's usually like intense violence. There's cannibalism as actually one of the features. Usually kind of disguises and deceit, and then everyone dies at the end. And so this to me always felt like a Jacobean revenge play, but it's unclear. It doesn't have the same setup. Usually there's a more clear revenge setup, but I've been
Revenge
thinking,
against who?
right. I've been thinking a lot about it because it's like it would make sense if Frank had killed Billy's father back in the day. That's what Gangs of New York is.
Hmm.
But it's possible, you know, usually they're kind of called to revenge by a kind of supernatural force, a sense of kind of it's a divine requirement. And there's so much evocation of the city and Catholicism that maybe almost the city needs someone to slay the demon, you know? Maybe it's the city kind of calling these people to get rid of Frank. So I don't know. It's just
Well,
I'm
it's Billy
thinking out loud.
Costigan's mother's death, right? That sets the story off.
It makes him that unmoors him and makes him sort of pliable
It's the
to Queenan.
precipitating incident, right? I mean, we've got some setting and some story elements that show up before that, but we really don't have a story until his mother dies. I mean,
Right.
we see other things happen with him before that, right? Because the time is compressed and warped and scenes overlap each other
Yep.
in that wonderful Scorsese way. Uh, in some ways, this is a tragedy about the American dream. He's
Right.
a smart kid, hardworking kid, and his father died poor. His mother died poor. And
In the way it
Frank
opens.
Costello is the epitome of the American dream, but it's ugly.
Yeah.
It's corrupt.
Yeah, there's very much. I mean, by opening with the busing incidents, it was sort of showing the kind of um, Boston as a bit of a fallen city, you know, as having these sins, and I don't know. It's hard to squeeze this movie into any generic plot, like because it doesn't. You know, it's such a bleak. It's heading like a bullet towards such a bleak ending that you kind of search for meaning, and it's difficult to find.
All right, so we just had Diggum and Colin going at it. Unfortunately, Diggum is such a pugnacious asshole that, uh, right, he doesn't realize this is a special conflict that he had. He just hates everybody.
Right. So he treats everyone.
If he could have understood the importance of this, then probably could have saved Keenan's life, maybe.
Right.
So,
Okay. So
yeah,
now,
Colin gets another promotion.
yeah, I know. God, it's good when you sell your soul to the devil. A lot of good stuff happens first.
And here he's looking sad. It's been a long time since he's had an erection.
And here's the iris out, as it's called.
Yeah, and so now he's kind of working for internal affairs, and yeah, no one wants anything to do with him.
It's lonely, lonely in his bed. So they're talking about moving. See that he's already started to doubt this father son relationship he's got with Frank.
He's
Ever since,
imagining a completely
yeah,
separate future.
yes,
He wants to be legit.
yeah. I think Frank kind of pushed too far and freaked him out, and this is very true.
I'm fucking Irish. I'll deal with something being wrong for the rest of my life.
Yep.
And I just get the sense that Vera Farmiga as Madeline, she's there to look like the perfect girlfriend.
Right. I mean, everybody in this movie is a liar. right? In
Yep.
deceiving everybody else. That's why it feels so Shakespearean in that sense.
It's like Othello if there were more than one Iago.
Right. Everyone was Iago, pretty much.
Well, there's probably two equal Iagos.
Yeah. So this is just one of the best scenes ever. These two guys shooting the shit. If the person ignores you, they're a cop.
Once you get paranoid, yeah, everyone looks guilty.
Yeah. And so I love this. Is great. Comes out covered in blood.
It's one of those wonderful Scorsese moves where it's like, you don't need to know about that.
Right. So he's trying to flush out the rat.
Jimmy, bring me a mop. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's that scene in early on in Goodfellas where, everyone's wearing, I think, is it a yellow sweater or a green sweater? But you go around the block and everyone is wearing the sweaters that they just got in.
Right. That grainy surveillance footage is not going to work.
No, but he does have the files that Frank Costello gave him, so he's following up on that.
Mm-hmm. There's the X. I don't know if you saw that. I'm not going to stop. Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. Wahlberg. All right, so now he's going to go after Queenan.
He's going to have the boss followed.
Yeah, so this is the federal building. And I think we're going to be on the red line soon. I don't like it, Sarge, is an actual line of dialogue in this movie. Yeah, so these steps are pretty iconic. Here we go. And now he's going for a walk. Yeah, so he's going to meet with Billy. Here's the red line. So let's see if they get the stops right. So what stop are they at now? Where are we? Is this Park Street?
So, what did you lose your Boston accent?
When I went to college, I unconsciously got rid of it because I must have realized that I sounded like a hick or something. I can. Oh, so that was back in the age when you could wear a headset and it would be okay. Um, yeah, I guess around college. Even though I went to Boston College, it was not filled with people who had Boston accents, believe it or not. Okay, so South Station is not the next stop, but I mean, that would have been, they would have gone through Downtown Crossing. But anyways, this is quibbling. All right, so that's South Station. This I can confirm is Boston. This looks like Fort Point, I guess. If I had to guess.
Well, we should be seeing an X sometime soon.
Yeah. Better believe it. A lot of rooftop action in the second half of this movie. A lot of rooftop stuff. Nothing is
And some of that
labeled well in Boston. So that piece of plywood with 344 and the arrow,
completely
that feels
believable.
very authentic. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Number 6 vacant. Yeah.
If you get a street sign, you're lucky. I mean, that gift, a lot of unlabeled streets in Boston. All right, so
Yeah. Why is having a secret meeting on top of a building a good idea?
I don't know. It seems really. All right, so now they've got the state police tailing. Okay. And then he's all right. So Colin is basically now he's the chess master. He's moving these two pieces to collision. Who doesn't smoke in this film?
And Keenan says, yeah, we can't go to the FBI. They're compromised.
And then
Earlier, they had hashed out, right, that Costello was working for him.
Yeah, okay. So now they realize Costello's people. I'm sorry. Yeah, Costello's people are on the way. So Queenan's got to get out of there. But I don't know if you've ever tried to hustle an elderly man down a vacant building. It's not easy.
It's a long time since Apocalypse Now.
Yes, exactly. I mean, come on. All right, so this is not good. I mean, there's plenty of places to hide. Put your phone on silent and crawl into one of these cabinets.
Yeah, it'd only be a matter of time.
Well, he could call the police or something. Or he's crossed himself, so that's a kind of an X, John.
Nope, there was one way in the back there.
There we go.
Wasn't a classic X, but
Oh boy. Oh, I don't like to see this. I don't like this at all. And now we have. There's the X's in the windows.
here,
Oh God.
all the way down. I'm not sure I believe that blood splat.
Yeah. So. Oh. I guess that fake blood Frank had all over him was just a foreshadowing. All right, so we're about to see a shootout here. But this was sort of a father figure for Billy, and now he's
And if he gets seen reacting to that, it's all over for him.
yes. Like, why are you touching the dead body?
So I'm not sure this counts as a classic Scorsese gangster film in that half of it is about the police.
Right, but
This is kind of right his version of The Wire.
yeah, but as they say at the beginning, what's really the difference between the cops and the criminals when there's a gun pointed at your head? So, all right, so we got a shootout. It's pretty good. This guy's hurt. I love this little. This is what I would do, faced with. Yeah, just turn it off. Just turn off your technology. You got to unplug every once in a while.
And the part of him that's trying to get away from Costello realizes he's in deeper now.
Yeah.
Cops are down and it's his fault.
Yeah. All right. So now, now that this is the next piece of the puzzle is that Dignam's got to get out of the way. Queenan's dead, and he obliges with that. Now he's going to get suspended.
Right. Dingham got 5 punches in
Yes.
before anyone could stop him.
Oh God. Damon does this kind of scene so well, that just impotent rage. I can investigate anyone I want as he's just bleeding. He's really good at that. Oh boy. "2 weeks with pay." I need those codes. All right,
Yeah,
so
so go ahead.
this is a great scene. We're gonna have a man bleeding to death who gave Billy the wrong street address, but he got there correctly, so he knows Billy's the rat. And he's gonna have this kind of deathbed conversation. And it's, I think, one of the stronger moments in the movie because he asks a question which is never answered. And I think that's this movie at large.
Ultimately, what do we want to be?
Right. Sorry, this guy does a pretty good "I'm dying" performance. One of the better ones. I really believe it. Like, I really believe this actor died for this role.
Well, one of the things that is different about The Departed than Infernal Affairs, other than like another 45 minutes of movie, is Infernal Affairs gets oddly sentimental at moments. So some of the music sounds like it ought to be from My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic.
Right. This never does that.
No.
There's no My Little Pony moment that I can
Now,
remember.
there are heavy metal moments too in that movie. So it's kind of like musically just very, very wild swings.
I saw that movie so long ago, I only vaguely remember it, but I remember the beginning having a similar kind of exposition, required to set all the pieces on the board, but it was done in a very dreamy kind of way, not in this kind of rock and roll music video cut kind of way. So I'm not surprised to hear that.
It was very condensed. Yeah.
Yeah, this might be a moment. Oh, well, look at the book that she's reading, Getting Pregnant, which is classic. So I'm trying to think of a good. Okay, so I'm trying to think of a good moment to mention this. So this William Monahan is the writer. This is the best thing he's written. A lot of his other, I haven't seen any other movie by him that I've enjoyed. He's done Kingdom of Heaven, Body of Lies. He did a movie called London Boulevard with Colin Farrell and Keira Knightley, which is really bad. I mean, it's it's remarkably bad. But so it concerns me that he's been handed the reins to a new movie called Marlowe, which is an adaptation of a Philip Marlowe book done by John Banville as Benjamin Black, his crime writing kind of pen name. It was licensed by the Chandler estate. I listened to the audiobook of the book because I'm obsessed with Marlowe. It wasn't good. And I don't think it would make a good movie. But maybe Monahan's magic comes from adaptations. I don't know. Maybe with source material, he's able to sort of elevate because his other work hasn't impressed. I'll say that.
Well, how many screenplays has he written.
I mean, God knows how many he's written, but I think he's probably had
Well, I mean,
nine,
that have been
nine
produced.
produced. Maybe nine or something like that. Um,
Well, I've interviewed Pat Russian, who uh, wrote the screenplay for The Zero Theorem, which was
oh
directed by
yeah,
Terry Gilliam.
yeah,
And what happens in the making of a movie?
right.
There
It's
are so many variables that, um, the movie ended up being made. Actually, Matt Damon was in that movie along with Margot Thierry, and the lead was played by Christoph Waltz.
that's right.
And David Thewlis was in there too.
Huh.
So at one point, the lead was supposed to be played by Billy Bob Thornton, who backed out of the movie because he's terrified of antiques, and they were planning to film in England.
You're kidding.
No. So if you just imagine the difference between Christoph Waltz and Billy Bob Thornton, both fine actors.
Yeah.
So,
You're right. You really can't judge a finished product, finished movie. Can't judge the writer for it because they don't have that kind of control. But
it's really tricky.
he has.
I mean,
he
if we
directed his last script, so he's moved into directing, which probably for that reason, for things not working out. But I don't know if he directed London Boulevard. I think he might have. It had one interesting scene, which was just a conversation at like a table. That's the only thing I remember from the movie. But I don't know. This Marlowe movie I'm worried about because I love the character so much, and it's so many degrees removed from Chandler. It just feels like it's a train coming at me. But who knows? Maybe it'll be great. Oh, also they
right.
cast Marlowe, and it's just so wrong. I just can't believe it. They cast Liam Neeson as Marlowe. I'm just hoping his schedule.
If he loses the accent,
yeah,
maybe.
Okay, he's just wrong.
So
sorry,
in this
we've
movie,
gotten far away. We've gotten far away.
Right, we've got Colin Sullivan here, who is playing cat and mouse now with Billy. He doesn't know who he is, but because he has acquired the police chief's phone right from the crime investigation, he was able to dial him up and talk to him.
Yeah, cell phones play a huge role in this movie.
And the cell phone had blood on it, and he was just using it. So in Infernal Affairs, right, the cop, actually, it was in a Ziploc, and he uses the phone through the Ziploc. Here, it's, right, the blood is actually
right
touching his skin.
And here he discovers the truth. Costello is a rat.
Colin Sullivan now is up to speed on, what Frank Costello's doing with the police.
Well, that's not the Fenway Marshes. That's not right.
So turns out the guy who, right, had the deathbed scene was also a cop.
How do we know that? I think it's a possibility. I think it's
the police report that he's a cop.
Yeah, it's disinformation.
It's what's going to allow Billy to, struggle on in this position.
This is good advice for dumping a body.
So Nicholson has no accent in this movie. Not an Irish accent, not a Boston accent.
No, that's because Jack Nicholson is in a movie. He's Jack Nicholson. It's like, Al Pacino. You're just hiring that persona, So this is the Zakim Bridge. I guess they're going up to Gloucester, I think they say. But that's going the opposite direction in reality. So I'm just nitpicking at this point.
Well, it's one of the things that happens when you try and film in a place is the people from that place.
We're okay. So this is we're entering the climax. Um, we had a kind of the microprocessor exchange, and now this is the kind of climactic set piece. And I remember that they filmed it in not far from where I was living, and where I grew up in Quincy. They're going to film this upcoming warehouse scene. And I remember when they were filming it, going to the fence and kind of looking, and it was just there was too many cars, and it was far away. You could only just see some sort of lights, but there were people lined up trying to get a glimpse of DiCaprio, I suppose. But okay, so he's rounding up the troops now. So this is when he's going to make his move.
Yeah, so Colin's trying to make it seem like he's complying with Costello, but he's also setting him up.
Yeah, it was interesting. Once it's like Billy talked about how he was 70 years old. So he's entering the end of his reign. And he said earlier, heavy wears the crown. So it's kind of like, who's next? Who's coming up? All right. So yeah. So this is was filmed, I think, in Quincy. These scenes. Yeah.
So we got a major drug transaction here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of cars here. He's tasting the cocaine.
Yeah, notice he isn't throwing it on top of women.
Right, not yet. That's later, probably. Okay. So there's no way out of here, right? They're trapped. It's gotten so twisted up that now it's kind of reversed.
Billy's trying to take care of Frank and keep him out of trouble.
And Colin's setting up Frank. Yeah. All right, he knows what's going on.
So
he's going to save
why
himself.
is Billy doing that?
I think he knows what's happening. He's not going to go into this trap with them. All right. Well, the Stadies have rifles, so it's going to be tough to beat them with handguns. All right, Mr. French just got tagged. Yeah, this is a bloodbath. Not Fitzy.
And so, yeah.
The hair's out. This is one of
heart.
Yeah, this is a rough moment here. Mr. French met an ugly end.
So, unlike
now, he does have a Notre Dame Fighting Irish shirt on. So last taunt to Queenan, maybe. Okay, so what were you going to say?
Oh, well, we got this major shootout here, and that's not how Goodfellas or Casino ends.
Right. You're kind of deprived of that climactic ending, but they give you everything you could want in this movie. So they evoked, when they first, at the beginning of the movie, that non serviam, which is sort of Satan rising up against his father. So we're going to get that in a moment here. I mean, what do you expect? I
So
don't
he's
mean,
got a bloody mouth, and it's almost like he doesn't care
yeah.
at how dire the situation is.
Do they know about me, Frank? Damon plays the best assholes. He's amazing. All right, I'm pretty sure you're going to see
Is
the.
it method acting, do you think?
I,
No.
I no, I think it's the same. I'm pretty sure you're going to see the blood bag underneath the shirt when Costello gets hit. Like I just remember this being very obvious. Like it just you could see it kind of on his chest.
Yeah.
That it's like there's something under
There's a
there.
bulge there.
Yeah. So this is a pretty good death scene as well. He did a good job. And then firing impotently into the distance. All right. So there he
Right.
is,
Do you know why Matt Damon plays such a
crucified.
great asshole?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Do you have a theory?
It's the shape of his mouth. When he smiles, he only looks like a smug asshole. That's the only smile he can make.
Yeah, I guess you're kind of right.
So it's not necessarily his personality. He just. So when you're a handsome guy and you've got that smug, horrible, wide ass, angular grin,
Yeah, it's like
it's hard to look happy without, looking like you don't deserve to be happy.
yeah, it is a punchable smile. I got him. Oh, he also the other reason he's so good is because Damon can look very childish and cowardly when he needs to.
Yeah.
You know. Thank you. So at this point, now he's really poised for big moves. He's no longer under the thumb of anybody.
But there's one piece of unfinished business,
Yep, one loose end.
which is the mole.
Yep. How long were you undercover? A long time. So I felt when I finally left Boston. Oh, it was a long time, man. Fucking long time.
But you went back.
I did. I did. Yeah, I'm actually undercover now. That's all. I just want my identity back.
Being a cop's not an identity.
Tell that to most of my graduating class. So is this the first? Yeah, I guess this would be their first scene together in this movie, but they passed briefly at the beginning outside Queenan's office. But this is
I
their.
don't think so. I don't think we see him in the same scene earlier.
I think they just. I think they just literally
Oh,
pass
that's
each other
right.
in a
No, he
waiting
was
room,
sitting down.
and they don't look
Right,
at each
because
other.
the secretary flirts with
Damon, right?
with Sullivan
Yeah.
and is ignoring Leonardo DiCaprio. And this is how great Scorsese is. Leonardo DiCaprio could be sitting in an office, and an actress can look like she's completely uninterested in him.
Right. And somehow
Who
it
wants
works.
that ugly mook?
Yes. Well, it's all the attitude, right? It's the confidence.
And I think that, this part probably looked good to Matt Damon because, it just, the guy who was really repressed and all wrapped up, well, he kind of did that with Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. No, I know this is like Bad Will Hunting. There's a certain continuity, yeah. I mean, he's great in this role. I guess I've been thinking about it. Could Brad Pitt have pulled off that role of Colin? I suppose, but it would have been hard to have seen Brad Pitt and Jack Nicholson, that relationship, as such a father and son relationship. And it would have kind of undermined the whole twin thing they got going on between DiCaprio and Damon. They really look alike. So I don't know. I think Damon was the right choice. All right, so now he knows the jig is up. All the pieces have fallen into place.
He knows.
And now he's deleting him, which is impossible. There's just no way that would be possible to do from one computer. You'd think there'd be a backup, something.
So part one of dealing with a problem is, erasing Billy from the system.
And they're going to erase him from life. All right, so we've reached the end game.
Colin knows now that Billy knows that he was the rat.
It's all...
So he went from setting up his pension and all that shit to just erasing him.
Delete.
From the system, and now he needs to figure out either how to erase him, or he doesn't necessarily need to do that because now he's just a criminal.
I'm not here for that. I'm not here for the cheating. I'm here to give you an envelope. Talk about crossing the guidelines of the American Psychology Association. I mean, she has really violated every ethics rule.
Which is why she's the only person he can trust.
Yeah, exactly. Why she's the best person in this film. So here she might be about to tell him that she's pregnant with his child. But he says, if you still want to tell me in 2 weeks.
That's presuming a lot.
That'll never happen. She almost opened it. A lot of envelopes with C words on them. Now this scene baffles me. I was dreaming I was dead, first of all. So, I don't understand. She's about to show him a sonogram. Now, I thought he was impotent. Maybe they overcame that. But also, she reveals the gender of the baby. And there's no way you can't get the gender of the baby that early. It's just, she's not showing. She's clearly just pregnant. I think it's early days for that. I mean, I'm not I don't have my medical degree, but I just take issue with that. It's another minor quibble. All right, so now her worlds are colliding as well. That's not the right zip code. So we have this bizarre stereo system. Can you help me with this? Who has this nowadays?
Well, it's the middle aughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of this, it feels like a dream sequence.
It really does. Look at that system.
So there's a CD player, And
This would have had to be established. He's like a record producer as well. Like, this makes no sense to me. That is an
I think
incredible.
this is just window dressing. Like, look at how much expensive shit he can afford.
Yes, that's what it's got to be.
And so she's listening to the evidence that
This is
that
from
Billy Costigan has
yeah.
dropped in on her.
This is from that porn theater exchange.
And I don't know how he would have recorded that clearly.
No, I don't. We're struggling to record this DVD commentary. Okay, so now he can hear it. So I actually think he recovers somewhat well by being like, "Hey, this is part of my undercover stuff." But I mean,
He sees Costigan's name on it. And he's like, "Oh shit!"
he's like, "Here we go." So yeah, so Costello left everything, all that stuff, to Billy. He'd become the trusted one. The homophobia continues. And we've got, again, the State House looming. Again, ineffectual Matt Damon. I mean, it reminds me of when Billy knocked on her door in the middle of the night, soaked, dressed in all black, and she let him in. And now she won't let Colin in. Kind of actually reminds me of DiCaprio as Gatsby coming to the door in that soaked white suit. Do you remember we talked about the Gatsby?
There's not enough liquor in the universe to get me to watch Baz Luhrmann's.
That scene was something else. That movie was horrendous, but that scene, that white soaked tuxedo.
I'm not sure there's a director I hate more than Baz Luhrmann.
I can think of a few. How do you feel about Michael Bay?
Michael Bay's made a couple of movies that are entertaining. Michael Bay has never made an epic piece of garbage and then asked me to worship him and say, behold my brilliance. Whereas almost every single movie Baz Luhrmann makes, that seems to be the message is, I am a genius, you should worship me. Look, The Great Gatsby with the Jay-Z soundtrack.
Yeah. I guess
right, he cast Leo as Romeo, which is kind of forgettable.
I never watched any Baz Luhrmann movie except The Gatsby. I just kind of know of his work, you know.
I can't stomach it.
Yeah. All right. So now we've got a twist on the Mexican standoff. And we're going to be putting this poor friend from the State Trooper Academy in a terrible position. Having to decide what to do.
Yeah, this wasn't exactly the best plan for Billy to bring in the evidence and clear his name. And
he should have gone to Spotlight, the Globe.
Yeah, just hand everything over to the Boston Globe.
Yeah.
Find a safe space.
Right. Tell me Rachel McAdams, the journalist from Spotlight, wouldn't have cracked this wide open. All right, so now we're going in the elevator. Is there an X in tape? Duct tape them, maybe a little bit? Okay. Oh, I don't know what that thing is. All right.
Well, there are all the X's on the windows from before.
Oh, there's the X. Okay. So
there's one. Yeah.
All right. So Damon, this is great. All his bravado. and he's about to become that orphan child again during this elevator ride. Just fucking kill me. It all just drains out. Oh god. A hell of a splatter.
So we've got yet another psychological twist in the story.
Yep. Trooper Barrigan turns out to be one of Frank's guys. Now he doesn't know what the hell to make of it. Pauses for a moment, and that's the end of him.
And so that's great news for Sullivan. The only problem is
Right.
we got to take care of each other. And Sullivan
Doesn't want to be taken care of anymore.
wants to be legit.
Yes. Wants a different life. Now, there's just no way to explain this crime scene away. I don't care how charming you are. There's no way you could make this make sense.
Oh, I don't know.
I would need to diagram this.
Costigan comes out of the elevator, shoots those two guys. I'm not sure how Colin is going to be able to explain how he shot Billy.
Right. Yeah.
With what gun? Although
theoretically there'd be blood and stuff up on the roof. I don't know. Oh, so yeah, so that's the other thing is he's recommending Costigan for the so he's kind of taking ownership of Billy's being a cop on the inside. Okay, so now pretty much everyone is dead except for Colin. We've got an angry stare across a casket with his girlfriend.
former girlfriend, about to be former girlfriend.
Yes, soon to be former. It's a nice picture. So, based on her amount of weeping, is he putting together that she had an affair with this guy?
I would expect so, since he knows psychology. He's smart.
Yeah.
He may be evil, but his head isn't up his ass.
Right. All right, so now they're going to have an awkward exchange by a tree, as I recall. What about the baby? And she just walks on. So, all right. It's not your goddamn baby.
And it's one of her few truly great moments, even though she's got no lines.
Right. All right, let's look for X's. There they are on the floor. The dog won't let him be pet. Goes away from him. Senses the evil. He's got a bag of groceries, just like Costello got him in his in the first scene. It's all kinds of symbolism. He's crying. He's crying into the door jamb. Now he opens the door and booties. Uh-oh. That's what every Boston person fears. You open the door and there's a Wahlberg with a gun. Again, Does it matter if it's a cop or a criminal when there's a gun pointed at your head? So we're about to pan up now. How do you feel about this last touch? There it is.
This almost ruins the movie.
It does. It almost ruins it.
Like, what are we in Ratatouille now?
It turns it. It's almost slapstick. It's like there's a rat.
Well,
It's so
when he
obvious.
was looking to buy the place, the guy says, you move in here a week later, you're upper class,
Yeah,
something like
right.
that. And it's like, no, you're still a rat.
Right.
Now in Monahan's script, despite the fact that, you think he's a hack writer.
Well, God, I
in
should
Monahan's
take that
script,
back. If he's probably listening,
in Monahan's script, actually,
you're a great writer.
The Capitol building wasn't described in the shot. But the rat was supposed to be eating a croissant, which would have driven the Ratatouille, illusion home further, maybe, but would have been a little bit less on the nose.
Yeah. I should say about Monahan, the reason why I felt entitled to insult an Oscar-winning screenwriter who's had tremendous success and is obviously a great writer. I did read, he wrote novels before this, or at least one novel, and I tried to read one, and I didn't make it. So I don't know. I think he's got talent. It just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's the nature of the game. So, William, if you're listening, you wrote a damn fine movie. So how do we wrap this up? Do we have any final thoughts? It's just a big vat of blood spilled across the city. There was some great acting, incredible directing. What do we take away from it?
Well, I think, one, this is way better than Gangs of New York. And I think it's a really interesting capper maybe to his other gangster movies like Goodfellas and Casino. Mean Streets doesn't fit in quite so neatly.
Right.
But the way that, he's telling a story, you've got all of these characters, and the story gets pretty convoluted and complicated. And I think Martin Scorsese's overwhelming skill sets as a director lets him squeeze all of that in so that a 2.5 hour movie actually doesn't feel that long. And, I think that the great cast somehow gets kind of a lot of great work to do.
I also think he's such an urban director, and he's so great at filming cities and bringing cities to life and kind of dramatizing cities. Even something like Hugo, right, is like a city movie. And
Very much so, yeah.
I thought he just did a great job of evoking the kind of black humor and nihilism that is within Boston, the kind of bizarre intertwining of crime and law enforcement, official and unofficial power. So I thought it was it was a great piece. It was like incredibly well done. And even, people from Boston loved it. They love seeing themselves even portrayed as violent thugs.
Well, did they love the town?
Yes, they did actually. But to me, this holds up much better than the town. And I think that has a lot to do with Ben Affleck. The way he chose to, the way he performed that lead role in the town. It was like,
I think he's a strong director and he can be a strong actor, but I don't think he tends to be a strong actor when he directs.
Exactly. You said what I was trying to say. There was just a flatness to that performance.
Like Argo is just a brilliant fucking movie, and you look at his acting performance and you're like, he didn't ruin the movie, and that's kind of the metric you have to use.
Right. But if both of those movies had he cast somebody else in those main roles, I think they would have been better.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and this movie just
And
moves so quickly. The town is sluggish. He doesn't have Scorsese's chops as a director exactly. I mean, he's a fine director, but Scorsese is a master.
uh, Ben Affleck tends to be a bit more straightforward,
Yeah.
where Scorsese can just layer in so much shit so that he kind of fits the whole world in there.
Yeah, in a way he is like Scorsese is driving like 85 on the highway, and Affleck goes the speed limit. That's my analogy. Anything else we feel like we need to say? I mean, was there redemption at the end? Is this a spiritual movie? I mean, Scorsese's obviously interested in spirituality, Catholicism. Um,
I
I
don't think there's religious redemption, but I have to say that it's a wonderful trick, right? Dignam quits
Yep.
and goes away, like he's not there in the last half hour of the movie, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And when he comes back, and you realize he's got the drop on, uh, Sullivan, you're like, oh, yes, there's that Aristotelian locking of the final piece. So, I love that ending, and like the really awful symbolism at the end kind of
Right. It was
diminishes how awesome that
unnecessary.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe there's something to be said about uh, redemption and morality being outside these kind of societal constraints, right? So it's what side,
And I love that Scorsese can do that with some of Hollywood's best actors and somehow use a Hollywood system to do things that counteract America's prevailing myths about itself.
exactly. I know it's amazing, but again, like Boston was the perfect setting for that because of its history and and the Bulger brothers, which was just such an incredible paradox. If you think about a city whose most powerful politician is the brother of the most powerful mob boss. I mean, it feels fictional, but it was reality here.
Well, its most famous successful politician, the son, not of a
Right.
mob boss, but of
Yeah.
someone who had, let's say, one finger in organized crime.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Would you challenge that election nowadays?
So, all
Yeah.
right, we've reached the official end here. Do you have any last words? Any last thoughts?
No,
What
I
grade would you give this?
oh, I think it's an A. I love this movie. I think it holds up. I mean, it's 11 years old and it's still great.
Yeah, I think I said 2004 early. It's 2006 this
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah,
So
2006.
I would give this an A minus. I really would have loved for Madeline's character, played by Verma
Yeah.
Farmiga's. I would love to see her character developed to be a little bit more surprising, a little bit more interesting. And not that it's not there exactly, but I feel like there's at least another dimension or two. We could argue whether or not Scorsese does well with developing women characters.
Right.
I'm talking at least like one mark down for the rat in front of the Capitol building at the end, the Capitol dome.
Yeah, I have to forgive all that because I don't have any choice. Tribal loyalty. But yeah, I agree. I mean I agree with those points. But I feel yeah, I don't know. I feel like we need to end this. It's been a long time. I'm about to depart. So let's let's put a cap on this.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it.
All right, we didn't get shot in the head at the end. So all right,
Well,
not yet.
hopefully. Yeah, let's stop now.